Today, I'm going to go over some of the main principles behind grain brain and how do you avoid it. So, first of all, anybody dealing with brain fog, forgetfulness, you can't find stuff that you're looking for, or maybe you're searching for words and having trouble coming up with what it is that you want to say. So, if you're experiencing any of those things, you may be suffering from what I call grain brain. First off, what is grain brain? So let me dig into that with you. So it's this idea that grains can actually be inflammatory. So we want to talk a little bit about that and how you can reduce inflammation. So when we talk about brain fog and things like that, that's really a sign that you're dealing with inflammation. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about how to avoid the grain brain. So, what is grain brain and how do you avoid it? So, first of all, let's think about this. So, grains in general, this is something that, for millions of years, we did not eat a lot of grains. Folks were kind of hunter gatherers. So, it was meats, it was vegetables, and nuts and seeds. That was really the diet for most individuals around the world and for their survival. And during that time, there wasn't a lot of chronic diseases going on. So that's what was happening early on, just in the evolution of mankind. Hunter gatherers were eating meats, nuts, and seeds, just getting in enough to survive, really. And so that was like 3 million years of a way of eating. And then in the last 12,000 years or so, they say, is when we started this whole agriculture, we started growing grains, and that's when we're starting to see more diseases as well start to pop up, really with the rise in agriculture. So let's talk about some of the principles behind that. So again, grain brain is this idea if you're dealing with brain fog or forgetfulness, things like that, there's something that you can do to help with that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So grains is, and what do we mean by grains? So grains are going to be things that contain flour or gluten. Gluten is a protein in the grain. So wheat, rye, barley, flour, all of these things have grains in there. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So the principle is you want to reduce inflammation. And how do we reduce inflammation? The way that we do that is actually to eliminate some of those things. Why is that? Because we know that higher inflammatory markers are associated with brain diseases like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's disease. There are some associations there. Also, we find that for some individuals, they can actually start to create antibodies against gluten or what's in the grain. And so an inflammatory response is kicked off. What is inflammation? So one way to think about it, if you just take the back of your hand and just start scratching it, scratch it, scratch it, scratch it. And just think if you were to continue to scratch that for a period of time, what's going to start to happen there? The skin is going to get red. It's going to swell up a bit. It's going to get warm and it'll raise. And that's really an external view of inflammation. And then there's also internal inflammation that happens as well. So with internal inflammation, you can see those types of things happening also. So we want to try to reduce inflammation. And what does inflammation look like inside the body? It can look like pain. It can look like skin eruptions like eczema, psoriasis. It can look like gut issues like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel. These are the things that inflammation how it can manifest itself in the body. So also then we want to reduce blood sugar. That's an important way to keep your brain healthy, is to reduce blood sugar, because there's been a link between obesity, diabetes, and declining cognition or function of the brain. Like, how sharp are you as far as your brain function is concerned? And that's something that we all should be concerned about just as we're starting to mature, I like to say, versus aging or getting older. We want to mature gracefully. And so if you've got higher blood sugar levels, that also is a concern. And that's why Alzheimer's has been called type 3 diabetes, because there is a link and an association between diabetics and the risk of developing Alzheimer's. So it's important to keep your blood sugar under control. And if you understand this premise of grain brain, then reducing your grains, which will in effect reduce blood sugar. How does that work? Well, grains are basically broken down into sugar, and then any excess sugar that's not utilized right away, it's actually stored in your fat cells. So excess grains can not only promote higher blood sugar levels, but it can also promote obesity. And then there's a link between blood sugar levels, obesity, and the risk of developing Alzheimer's. Another thing that we can do to avoid the grain brain is to eat good fats. What do those look like? So you've probably heard of unsaturated, polysaturated, kind of all these different things. So I want to talk about the ones that you want to focus on. So unsaturated fats are what you find in like avocados, your nuts and seeds. Those are your good fats. And understand that your brain needs fat as a fuel. So all fat is not bad. Let's be clear about that. And then your saturated fats are mostly from your meats like chicken, beef, eggs. Those are good fuels for your brain. And then another big piece to avoiding the avoiding the brain fog and all of that associated with excess grain intake is actually to get enough sleep. How many times have I said sleep is important as we're talking about so many other health concerns? And I hope you're starting to see that connection, that sleep is so important. And what's important as it relates to your brain and inflammation and things like that, first of all, it's been said that sleep and getting enough sleep is connected to the function of over 700 different genes and actions in your body. Let me repeat that. Sleep and getting enough sleep is connected to over 700 different functions and genes in your body. So don't sleep on getting enough sleep, okay? That is super important. And I hope you're starting to see how that connection is playing in so many different aspects of your wellness. So if you're working on optimizing your health, which really should be a priority for everybody now. The other thing to note here, 7 to 8 hours is ideal. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is that ideal window. Why is sleep connected to brain function or avoiding the grain brain? So more sleep actually produces more leptin. Leptin is a hormone that basically tells your body when you've had enough to eat. So it controls some other things as well, but it's the satiety hormone, if you will. So for some people, when you're overeating, and who hasn't experienced this? Maybe you had trouble sleeping or you didn't sleep well at night and you've got a lot of work that you need to do the next day. What do you crave? What do you go toward? It's probably some caffeine and also probably some sugar, right? So when you don't get enough sleep, your leptin is not working well to tell your brain, hey, we've had enough. And as I pointed to earlier, if you're eating too much, then you can raise your blood sugar, which can also affect your brain function. So like we said, avoiding the grain brain is about 5 or 6 different key things. Number one, avoiding or reducing grains in general. That's kind of not how our bodies were meant to function. For 3 million years, we ate, as human beings, meat, nuts and seeds, veggies. That was kind of what we ate. With the onset of agriculture and industrialization, that's when all of these grains came in, and that's also when a lot of chronic diseases came in. Number two, you want to reduce inflammation. Why? Because inflammation has been linked to brain diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Number three, gluten can be playing a role in that. Why? Because your body can develop antibodies against it, which kicks off that inflammatory cascade. What is inflammation like? Remember I said scratch your hand, and what happens is it gets warm, red, hot. Your immune cells are activated to come take care of what it perceives as damage. And that can also happen on the inside of the body. Next thing is to reduce blood sugar. How do we do that? We want to reduce weight, reducing our risk of diabetes, understanding that Alzheimer's has been called type 3 diabetes. Why? Because there is a strong association between having diabetes and developing Alzheimer's. Next, what you want to do is eat the good fats. What are good fats? You find that in dense fish like salmon. You find that in nuts and seeds, avocados, coconut oil, olive oil. And then also you want to get enough sleep. Why is that important? Because sleep, first of all, it has an impact over 700 different genes, and that means different functions in your body are related to getting enough sleep. Super, super important. And then also getting enough sleep controls that leptin hormone, which tells your body when you're full. So if you find that you're lacking in sleep and then you're overeating the next day, it's because you're affecting that hormone. Take on some of these things yourself. So of the things that we talked about, what is it that you need to implement? Do you need to get more sleep? Do you need to reduce some of the grains in your diet? Do you need to get more of those good fats? Whatever that is for you, make sure you do it. Here's another quote. So again, the book that I'm referencing is called Grain Brain by Dr. Perlmutter. One of the other things that he is quoted to say is that moving your body is probably better for your brain than reading or doing puzzles or even actually thinking, moving your body. So that's another thing that you can do to keep your brain health at its optimal level. All right, you guys, have a great day, and I'll see you next week.